Our next speaker is Maria Howard, who's the CEO of the Alzheimer Society of BC. She's a very busy person with work in governance in various organizations, but she always has her heart with the people who have dementia, particularly Alzheimer's disease, and how can their lifestyle be improved. Maria's talk is Making an Impact, Supporting British Columbia through First Link.
Good morning. Thank you, Lynn. I'm just going to share my slides here. And let's see how we do this. Here we go. I always like following Julie because she always reminds me that a robot dog probably has a lot more benefits than the two large dogs that I have to vacuum after every day and walk multiple times a day. So thanks, Julie. That always puts a thought in my mind. It really is a pleasure to come and share again with this forum of the work that the Alzheimer's Society of BC is doing, which really is a partner with so many people in our province to support people living with dementia. Just to always start, just the impact in terms of numbers, it always helps kind of ground us and really what we are still all working together to change. And that's really the impact of dementia globally. We know that there are 50 million people living in the world with dementia, and the World Health Organization tells us that there are about 10 million people a year who receive a new diagnosis. If we take that down to Canada, we know again about 750,000 people are living with dementia, with again about 25,000 people receiving a new diagnosis every year. The numbers are growing, and so is the complexity. I always say, wouldn't it be great as a human being if we only had one disease and that was our disease, and after that, nothing else happened? But unfortunately, that's not the case. And we know that people living with dementia also have many other health issues, which means that the complexity of supporting people with dementia is increasing. In BC, the number of people that we know is living with dementia, which we also suspect might be on the low end because of not many people yet readily coming forward for diagnosis, is around 70,000. The number that I always like to share with that number, which always actually grabs my attention more, is the fact that we also know that roughly 60% of people in BC who have a diagnosis of dementia live in our community, which means that the efforts that we all need to make as a community to support people who are living with the disease and their carers is just forefront of our considerations, because we will be interacting with people with dementia who are members of our community, who are wanting to feel included and acknowledged and have a great quality of life. And so we need to think about the stigma and the barriers that still exist that people who are living with disease are challenged with every day. The Alzheimer's Society of BC really wants a world without dementia. That is our vision, and it begins with a dementia-friendly community. Again, a place where people understand that living with dementia doesn't mean the end of a good life. It doesn't mean that a person is not able to contribute, have their own desires and wants, and still be a part of the community and contribute in the way that is unique to them. We also know that we all have our own personal desires, our personal cultural elements. We all are individuals, which means that one person with dementia is one person with dementia. And so the importance of understanding what it's like to live with dementia and reducing that stigma is so important, because one person who has dementia may want to have a very full engaged, active life, where another person with dementia may still want to have a life that is quieter and more inclusive. Neither is wrong, neither is right. It is the way we all are, and we need to understand who the person is before we start to think about the disease. The Alzheimer's Society of BC is looking at 5 ways to change dementia within our province. First, we want to change the conversation, which is exactly what we're doing today. We want to talk about what it is like to have the disease. We want to understand the facts of the disease, get rid of the myths, and begin to talk about people's experiences. We then want to change the experience, which is meaning that people who are living with dementia need support, they need opportunities to participate in activities, to maintain the desires that they had before, as well as learn new interests and participate in new activities. We need to support both people living with dementia as well as their care partners who are also coming to the disease and having their own experience. We need to change the practice. We know that many people within our communities are supporting people living with dementia, and they need to understand how to support people living with dementia. Sometimes that may be no different than supporting anybody who has some type of a chronic health issue or just providing good care in a community. But sometimes living with dementia, there are different ways to help a person have a better experience. We know from the support that we do of healthcare professionals in long-term care homes that by helping healthcare workers understand a different way of communicating and having a different way of managing people's behaviors, if that person perhaps may be nonverbal, leads to a better experience, both again for the person living with dementia and for the healthcare worker. We also need to change policy. Yes, Alzheimer's and other types of dementia is a disease. So yes, it is a healthcare issue, but it is not just a healthcare issue. It touches transportation, education, it touches tourism, it touches legal and financial. So through the Alzheimer's Society of BC and many of our partners, we're advocating for changes in policies that help people living with dementia have the right to the supports they need through government and legislation. And of course, we need to change the future, and hence why we are so great to be here as part of this forum. We need to support researchers in finding the understandings of why this disease occurs, how we can treat it, how perhaps we can eliminate it. We need to ensure that researchers have the right information about the experience living with the disease. They need to understand what are their priorities and what are the things that mean the most for them. But we also need to help the researchers ensure that what they are finding is being translated to people living with the disease, so that the information from research to the people who are in the experience is moving back and forth as a two-way communication. One of the ways that the Alzheimer's Society of BC is changing the experience is through our First Link Dementia Support Program. This is such an important way to reach out across the province to many, many people to help them have the best support and information they can. Through the First Link Support Program, we offer actually a number of elements. We start with our First Link Dementia Helpline, which is a provincial helpline in a number of languages: English, Cantonese, Punjabi, Mandarin, to name a few. It is a line that anybody in this province can phone during the week to ask a variety of questions to understand about the disease. Every year we receive well over 3,000 calls to this line, and many of those calls do become First Link referrals, where people are referred through their physicians or their healthcare professional to actually interact with the Alzheimer's Society of BC to get supports and services beyond just simply talking on the phone. We receive a roughly 2,500 First Link referrals a year, and these referrals are growing as people are beginning to have the opportunity to speak with a physician and receiving a diagnosis early. Once a person becomes active with the Alzheimer's Society of BC First Link program, we then offer a number of dementia education sessions. This year, I believe we offered over 600. Some of those are in Cantonese and Mandarin, as well as Punjabi. We have support groups. Currently, we run 100 different support groups across the province, and these support groups are both for caregivers as well as people living with dementia. We also offer our Minds in Motion program, which is a wonderful program where people who are living with dementia and their care can come and participate in a recreation physical program as well as a social interaction. And we have roughly 40 of those programs that run throughout the year with wait lists, because it is a great way for people to actually build their own community and begin to share experiences with people who understand completely what they're going through. We also provide a number of other brochures and information through our website, and constantly knowing that what people need first and foremost is information and education, so that they can understand what is happening in their own personal life and make the decisions that is unique to them. Within the First Link Dementia Helpline, we often promote this line not only, again, in the healthcare system, but for many other people. We provide the number to TransLink through bus drivers, the first responders across BC. A number are trained to use this line, so are a number of city workers. We encourage people to phone this line if you need to talk to someone about dementia, whatever that might be. The calls that we receive on this line range from, do I have dementia? I have memory loss. To how do I talk to my doctor about what's going on in my home life? How do I talk to the caregiver at the long-term care home who doesn't seem to understand the behavioral issues? What do I do if I see somebody walking down the street and they look lost and I don't know how to approach them? We have questions about legal. We have questions about financial planning. It's an opportunity where people can come and talk. It is so important because sometimes one just needs to reach out and have that conversation. What is really wonderful about, again, coming to this forum today is that back in 2018, we approached UBC and specifically Dr. Julie Robillard to actually do a research evaluation of First Link. We needed to know whether what we were offering and what we believed was making an impact was actually making an impact. So working very closely with Julie's team over the last couple of years has really shed a lot of light on First Link. We've had over 1,000 participants in the research program, and that's ranged between people living with dementia, their caregivers, and healthcare workers. And we've asked a number of questions. What we have learned so far is that First Link is making a difference. People feel it's a place they can come and receive information and get support. They can understand about the disease, they can think about the future, and they know how they can maneuver the system and know they are not alone. But we're also learning that people are still wanting more information on caregiver stress and burnout. How do we increase social interaction and physical activity? How do we plan for the future? And as the research evaluation proceeds, Julie's team will be doing more specific interviews with people to learn more about this and how the Alzheimer's Society of BC can change our First Link program and make it that it is really driving the impact that we know people need within this province. Right now, due to COVID, we're a little limited in how that is going. So we're taking a slight little detour in the research project, and Julie and her team are spending some time doing a mini survey asking families who are connected with First Link, what do they need during a pandemic? What do they need during a crisis situation to continue to help them feel supported? While COVID has been happening for the last few months at the Alzheimer's Society of BC, we have reduced some of our services to ensure that the number one priority for us is reaching out to families who are connected with the Alzheimer's Society. We've been making several thousands of calls to many members of our programs to check on them, while our support groups and our mind and emotion programs are on hold due to some of the restrictions. We are reaching out to people and we're talking. And we're finding that what comes out over and over again is people need to have connections. They need to know that they're not alone and that there are people there who they can ask questions to. Over the next few months, as we sort of maneuver through COVID and the pandemic, we are going to start setting up some virtual support groups and learning how we can provide support virtually. We appreciate that doesn't always help some individuals, and others it may actually open up some doors. It may be different ways to reach people across this province, and people have unique situations who may not be able to find people in their own community who are living their experience, but maybe in another community in the province we can join people. So as we move through this time of unusual circumstances, the mission and the vision of the Alzheimer's Society of BC does not change. It is still how we can help people living with dementia and their care partners have the best quality of life for their own circumstances. And whether that's through our programs from the past, our exercise programs, our dementia education, or we move into a virtual world to continue to have that support, we want people to know they are not alone and they can reach us and contact us at any time, and we will certainly be there to help. So thank you so much again for having me join the forum. And again, I encourage you for your personal situation or even anybody you may know, please encourage them to phone the Dementia Helpline. It is available and we have people who are ready to talk through situations and help people understand that there is a way to reduce stigma, gather information, and make the best decisions. Thank you so much today.